Hello. So this is part four of the series of why projects fail. In this category, we're going to be talking about requirements or lack of solid requirements. Some of the things that I've seen over the years regarding requirements is inadequate or vague requirements, meeting end user expectations, or really not meeting end user expectations, not articulating exactly what the end user is needing, and then lack of user input. So we'll talk about each of these. I'm going to be talking about each of these next. So first, inadequate or vague requirements is very common in projects. Is not only where these are internal projects where there's a internal team working on the projects, but also vendor related projects where they have given you an SOW or statement of work, which is kind of very high level. Obviously you don't define each and every details in this SOW, but you need to have enough information that basically articulates the scope of the project well, so that there's not vagueness in it, where people can knowingly or unknowingly take advantage of things. So make sure that there's clarity in requirements. If there is something not understood, that do not shy away from kind of asking the questions and detailing that piece out, if you will, so that there's not much vagueness. Couple of things that I have used in the past, for example, that have come in handy is in the case of software engineering, using a TDD method or test-driven development. So what you do is, along with the requirements, you're creating test cases that are signed off by the customer, right? So that kind of helps you. So what happens in that case is basically the customer is providing the requirements, and you as the doer, or your team as the doer, is basically converting those requirements in order to create test cases and sending it back. So that kind of creates an automatic feedback loop, if you will, for the customer to make sure that your understanding is accurate, you're articulating things correctly. Also, when you are working on projects, you have gained enough knowledge that you may be able to guide the customer, maybe kind of help them in clearly define their thoughts, if you will, that can be easily converted to whatever product that you're trying to do. Another thing that has come in handy is kind of prototyping this, right, before this is the product is created, so that there's the customer can kind of sort of see it and feel it, and then make sure that they are in agreement in what you're going to be building, and then you start building. Part of this, the agile scrum approach, is kind of helps in this way as well, because what you're doing is basically you're showing the customer a prototype every 2 weeks, or whatever the frequency of the scrum is, of the sprint is. So you're not kind of delaying it till the end of the project, and the customer is like surprised by it, right? There are two reasons for that. One, that as a project team, the project team may not be clearly understanding what the customer is requirements are and what they are providing. There may be kind of so that's one. The second thing is the customer himself or herself may not be kind of thinking through as much when they're providing the requirements as they can, as the product kind of starts taking the shape, and then they can basically guide you in building this. So again, prototyping, test driven development, also things like RAD, or sorry, JAD, which is joint application development, where you're sitting with the customer and basically building the prototype together, to make sure that there's some kind of a um, you know uh, visualization of what is to be built, if you will. Also, other than kind of documenting this in just text format, pictures are worth thousand words. So it's always good to include some pictorials, if you will, whether it be architectural pictorial or basically the shape of the product, if you will, or uh, that kind of thing, or if you want to kind of go through some mind mapping exercise, which is kind of similar to my picture here, kind of some brainstorming workshop, etc., if you will, you can do that in order to kind of get the requirements and kind of categorize the requirements, and kind of remove that vagueness. One other thing before I go to the next one is prioritization of those requirements, right? Kind of, yeah, I mentioned the concept of MVP in one of the videos, or minimal viable product. What you want to do is basically you don't want to wait to kind of build, typically you don't want to wait to kind of build an nth degree product. You want to have something that the people can start using it, making, sort of getting the benefits. What is that minimal set of requirements that need to be accomplished? It is important, not only because kind of it's a low hanging fruit that basically people can start kind of using it, trying it, getting benefit from it, but also it gives you a feedback loop of, maybe some changes you need to make in the next release, if you will, based on the now usage, if you will, of the first product. The next one is meeting end user expectations, and this is again, misunderstanding what the customer wanted, right? So that's kind of the reason that some of these prototyping, some of the TDD, and all those things that I mentioned would help in order to make sure that you are understanding the user expectations correctly. You need to also have kind of a acceptance criteria for the project defined earlier on, if you will, so that there's not, it doesn't become an issue at the end where, the customer is not happy with what was created, even though how much hours were spent on it, and etc., because there's kind of a mismatch between what the customer may be thinking and where what you built, if you will. So we need to make sure that everything is getting aligned there. So that's about meeting end user expectations. Next one is lack of user input, and this is also, I've seen on many projects that, for example, instead of getting users who are actually going to be using your product involved, what you do is basically you have the user managers or their superiors or some SME getting, kind of building this idea in their head, and then basically, kind of visualizing and providing that, if you will. It's important always to make sure that the people who are actually going to be using it, consuming it, you have some sort of a representation from that group, if you will, so that they can help shape in this product, for multiple reasons. A couple of the important ones are, one, because they know more, since they're using the product, some of the things that a manager may not be able to think about, right? Since these people are actually using the product, right? And they may be able to kind of help as you're kind of creating a prototype and all those things, that what may work, what may not work, etc. Second, what when you do that, you are kind of creating an ownership from that user group. Now they're they are going to be more involved. One, they have the skin in the game, right? So it's not it gets to be at where, an issue with the adoption of the new product, right? When you have their people involved, the users involved, that team involved, people are more, kind of open to taking up the change, if you will, adoption becomes a lot more easier. So those are kind of a few things around the requirements that I wanted to highlight that are important to prevent project failures. I'm going to stop this video now, and then we are going in the next video in part 5. We are going to talk about the last piece, which is around the lack of organizational support.